iFILM, London. iFILM, London.
This is Kugan Cassius for iFILM London. We're at the Frank Warren headquarters here in Turnford. With me I've got Frank Warren himself. How are you, Frank?
I'm hanging in there. What about you?
Yeah, it's just about hanging in there. Could be better, could be worse, but you know. It's been a very interesting and successful year for Frank Warren Promotions this year. I want to start with your world champions in your stable, Nathan Cleverly. Do you think it's been a bit of a mixed year for Nathan Cleverly? He's had 2 fights this year, and perhaps not the fights the fans were looking for, but what have you taken from his fights with Carpentier and Sean Hawke this year?
Well, he's had an unfortunate year. You know, he should have been more busy. He pulled out of 2 fights of injuries, so that was a bit of a blow for us. He did what he had to do against the 2 guys he fought. We were looking for the bigger fights, but as you know, we made offers to various people. I remember showing you a lot of documentation regarding that, so those fights didn't happen. But next year they will. He's been ordered a mandatory defence, which is against Krasniki, which is a bit of a pain in the backside, but we're stuck with it, and we're going to go with that. Purse bids are this week for that fight, and then we'll see what happens after that one.
So obviously everyone's always touting for these super fights all the time. It's what the fans want, and you know, Oscar De La Hoya the other day was talking about potential fights with Bernard Hopkins next year. I mean, you know, how far are we away from this?
Well, we had the deal done. But unfortunately, WBO have ordered this fight with Krasniki, so Hopkins is now, I think, fighting Tavoris Cloud, which is a real disappointment for Nathan, and it's a big disappointment for me because they're the fights he wants. That's the company he should be mixing in, but it is what it is, and we have to move it.
Moving on to Ricky Burns. Ricky Burns has obviously just shot up this year with impressive wins, notably over Kevin Mitchell, who you know, a lot of people were tipping Kevin Mitchell to beat Ricky Burns, but he showed his class in Scotland in front of his own fans, and there's massive fights for Ricky Burns again next year at that weight.
Well, he seems to be the perennial underdog. Every fight that most of the opponents he fights, everybody seems to fancy he's going to get beat, but he wins his fights, he wins his style. He's a double world champion. I think he is the best fighter in the country. I do at the moment. I really think that all he's done, he's proven at the highest level. His pedigree. You know, he brushed aside Kevin Mitchell in real style, which I was quite surprised. I thought it'd been more a tougher fight. In what he did with Castides, he outboxed him. Paulus Moses is a good fighter, and he boxed well and won that fight. And next year, it looks like it's not far off, and I'm hoping he's going to be fighting Broner. That's what we're working
on. George Groves, impressive display against the hardest man in the world, probably, Glenn Johnson. You know, George said after the fight that, you know, if it was anyone else in that weight division, he probably would have taken him out with the amount of punches he was throwing. But you know, Glenn Johnson stopped only once by Bernard Hopkins, I think about 10 years ago. Really, that long ago? Sorry. And you know, so it was always going to be a tall order to actually stop Glenn Johnson on the night, wasn't it?
Well, they say if you cut Glenn Johnson in half, you'd read, but you'd never be able to do it because you just can't cut the guy in half. He's the toughest guy I've seen. I mean, he absorbed so much punishment in that fight, and he was always a threat and a danger. There's a couple of times he caught George with a couple of right hands during the fight. I thought George was very unlucky not to stop him in the 6th round. I think the bell rang, and I think he really, you know, he was there or thereabouts with it. But a good fight for him, considering he also has had a bad year with injuries. He was due to fight for the world title, pulled out a couple of weeks before the fight took place. Then he obviously fought Paul Smith. He then had a good fight in the States, tough opponent out there, and he really did, did like him. The TV liked him out there, the fans liked him, but unfortunately sustained a cut. So, it's a bit of a, it's been a bit of a bum year for him. But having said that, he's ended it on a high note. And when you consider he's only had 16 professional fights, and the way he handled Glenn Johnson, I thought was quite a feat. It was a hard pace he fought. He set a pace from the beginning. He kept that pace up. So you know he can do the distance. You know he's got a heart. You know he can punch. He's got all those things going for him. And I think in 2013 he'll be fighting for a world title. And remember, he's only had 16 fights.
Moving on to Derek Chisora. What's the situation with Derek Chisora as in regards to him getting his licence back from the British board?
We will make an application for his BBBFC licence, and hopefully they'll look favourably to it. He's been doing a number of things outside the ring that have been good from his point of view, for his, to keep his mind focused and to address certain issues that have been a problem for him in the past. So if he gets his licence, he'll be in the mix with the Tyson Furies, with the David Prices, and hopefully we'll get another crack at the world title. You know, him and David Haye, without a doubt, was the biggest fight of the year in the UK, crowd-wise and the media attention it got. It was a really good fight, but it was a classic British heavyweight fight. He wobbled David in the end of the third round, but unfortunately got clipped himself and was stopped for the first time as a pro. But he's got a lot to give. So hopefully he'll get his licence back and he can get back in the mix. And David Haye, by the way, he's going to have I think he's going to have a good year next year as well. He's going to be fighting for the world title. There's no doubt about that.
Be looking to get that on Box Nation, Frank?
Yeah, well, that's what Box Nation is all about. You know, some of the best fights this year have been on Box Nation. There's no doubt about that, from both domestically and from abroad. Best young stars coming through. Broner, he's a Box Nation fighter. You know, with the exclusive deal that Box Nation have with Golden Boy, so he's had great exposure here. There've been some really good fights. Mayweather was on Box Nation. Even Freddie Flintoff's debut. But there's been some. Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good mixed bag, and for a boxing fan, I think that they're delivering what the fans want, which are good fights from around the world.
So we'll talk about your Olympians now. Start with Billy Joe Saunders, new British middleweight champion. I mean, it was a bit of a... talking to Billy Joe Saunders after the fight, he didn't seem completely happy with his performance. Nick Blackwell came there, and he's a big, strong fighter at that weight, and just, was pushing Billy Joe back quite a way along the fight.
He made him work hard. You know, you've got to take your hat off to Nick Blackwell. I think Nick Blackwell's got a bit of a future. He was in tremendous physical condition. He wasn't fazed by being in the other guy's backyard. And his team and himself, I think they did themselves proud. You know, but Bill showed that there's another side of his game, which he can go and box when he needs to. His jab was good. His movement was good. I know Jimmy Tibbs was quite pleased with him, and he got another 12 rounds under his belt. And again, he's not had that many fights. He's only 23. He's got a way to go yet. So I think 2013. You know, I'd hope at least he's European champion.
And Frankie Gavin also capturing the British title against Junior Witter. A lot of people sort of, want of a better word, slag the fight off because of maybe Junior's negative approach to it. Frankie Gavin did what he had to do, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, Junior Witter's in the Who Needs Him club. I mean, he's horrible to watch. I've never liked watching him as a fighter. I don't like his style. He doesn't excite me. He always manages to drag the other guy down to his level. And I think that Frankie, for the first few rounds, sort of was very patient and then just got on top of him. And Witter then just got, as he always does, on his bike. And but at the end of the day, Frankie's got the title. He's fighting in early January, defending the title in Warsaw. And he should be. I mean, he's got to be there or thereabouts next year. He's got to be looking for big things. He's not somebody you can just put the brakes on. He can go for it. He's capable of doing that.
What's the situation with Kevin Mitchell as it stands? Obviously, hasn't fought since his world title fight with Ricky Burns. So, what's the plans for Kevin Mitchell next year?
Well, Kevin's supposed to have been up here this morning at 11:30, so it's another meeting that was cancelled. So we're rearranging it, I hope, for this week, and then we'll see where we go. But as far as Kevin's concerned, he has a contract with me. I'm his manager, and we will see what happens in the new year.
Obviously, don't want to be too negative about this conversation, but there's been things that have happened at your promotional company involving James Agal and Tony Bell. You're leaving you. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, without going into it too much, is it best for both parties of what's happened with Agal going to Hennessy and Bell, you now not with you?
Well, Tony Bell, unfortunately, didn't like the fact that I thought that Nathan Cleverly beat him, which he did. I'm not going to sit there and tell him that he won a fight or tell him that the fight was a draw when it wasn't. Nobody dares see it that. But if a few backslappers want to tell him that, then fair enough. Tony Bell, who thought I was the best thing since sliced bread, leading up to that fight, we had all these good things going on. But that happens in boxing. If there's a choice between him and Nathan Cleverly, I'm in the Nathan Cleverly business. Nathan won the fight. I'd done a good job for Tony. He could have come again, but we decided to go our separate ways, and that's how it turned out. The Board of Control had a hearing. He owed me money for management fees, which he paid, and that's the end of the matter as far as I'm concerned. So whatever he does in the future, he will do, and we'll see, and time will tell if he's made the right decision or not. As regarding James DeGale, I chose not to renew the promotional deal because it was too expensive for far as I was concerned. The deal I did with him when he turned pro was a good deal for him at the time, but unfortunately the economic climate has changed, and I think he shopped around to a lot of people, and a lot of people were quite shocked the type of money he was earning. But anyway, we are now where we are. We've parted company. He paid to be released from his contracts, and that suited me fine. And I'm in the George Groves business. That's where I'm at. And he was upset that I signed George Groves. But if you really think about it, years ago, Nigel Benn, Steve Collins, even Chris Eubank on board, all these guys had promotional deals and signed with me, all fought each other. There was never a problem. But unfortunately for James, it seems that was the catalyst and the problem from his point of view that he was unhappy with. But anyway, he's got his career, he moved forward. And who knows, him and George Groves may fight again, which would be a good fight. I think George, I just feel that George has despite the injuries, I think George has come on a bit, and I think that, I'd like to see that fight happen again. And as I say, hopefully we will get it on next year.
Frank, is it difficult with so many fighters in your stable at all levels, from near novices to people, British champions to world champions? Is it difficult to keep everyone happy all the time?
Of course it is. I mean, you look at football clubs. There are players at football clubs who 1 minute they're happy as Larry, next minute they want to lead the club. That's human nature. You get people working in newspapers. A reporter, he'll go from one newspaper to another newspaper, and that's life. Or one executive will leave a company to go to another company. All those things happen. It's happened at, you want to talk about other promoters, it's happened with Mick Hennessy, it's happened with Matchroom, it's happened with Frank Maloney, it's happened with me in the past. That's what it is. But the end of the day is that I'm involved with a number of fighters. I'm very focused on the fighters that I want to get behind and push, and we'll do as I've always done. I've been doing this for a long time. We've delivered more shows than any other promoters this year, bar none, in a very difficult economic climate, very difficult conditions at time. We've done it with a fledgling TV channel that now is in a position where it's now breaking even when it's first year, which is a bit of a feat considering, again, the economic climate. But it's tough, but it's enjoyable. It's a challenge, and I'm always up for a challenge, always up for pushing raising the bar. Always done it. Put on the biggest shows in the UK this year, bar none. More bums on seats than anybody else when you think of all the big shows that we do. And good quality fights. You get a couple of bum fights here and there, but Arsenal unfortunately are not so good this season. But they'll play Manchester City, Manchester United some weeks, and other weeks they've got to play the Readings and so forth. So that's no different in boxing. You get mostly good fights, and you get a couple of ones that you're not happy with. But as far as I'm concerned, it's been a very difficult year, but a successful year. We've got our boxers in a good position. We had a good end of year show. We've got plenty of people there at the XL, and I'm very confident moving forward. Certainly with my two boys, Francis and George, who are really getting their teeth into it now. They've cut their teeth. They're learning. They're still learning. They don't know everything, and it'll take a long while before they know everything. But they're quite sensible kids. They've got good heads on their shoulders, and eventually between them and the great team that I've got working here in the office, we'll do what we always do, which is to deliver great shows. We've got some really big shows. We're going to kick off the new year with a couple of really good announcements, and more importantly, we're in control of our own destiny. We don't go cap in hand to any TV channels. We took a very bold step. What we did was a very bold step to walk away from Sky a year before Sky decided they were going to dump promoters. I don't think if I hadn't walked away, then it'd have been a very interesting situation to see who they would have gone with their decision to go with one promoter and not a group of promoters. But I left a year before that happened. But we've really worked hard. I mean, we've really worked hard, and I really do believe that next year is going to be, a lot of the hard work we've put in, we're going to see the fruits of our labours come into being. It's, boxing's a tough business like any other sport at the moment. Like anybody, people in life are having it really difficult. We're not, we as a business are in the same boat. We've had a real tough time. Couple of years, lost money, and if you're losing money for one reason and one reason only: you're paying too much money out. But it's all found a level now. We are where we are, and as I say, I'm very excited about the future. I really am excited about the future. The difference between me and some other promoters who say that they rely on, they don't rely on boxing to make money. Well, we do, and that makes that's really should be good for any boxer to know that. Because what we got to do is make the right decisions. Because if we don't make the right decisions, we're out the game. Whereas I hear all these things that are being said all the time, and all the sniping and so forth. But you know what? It's the same old business. It's another year, another talking head, another noise that you hear. I've been hearing it for years and years and years. And you know what? We're still doing it, and we will still be doing it next year and the year after. We've got a good outfit, good organisation, good fighters, and we're very good at what we do, and that is guiding and producing world champions. Have done it consistently, and we will continue to do so.
Frank, are you open to working with all the promoters in the country? Because from a fan's perspective, they see some fights at domestic level that are not being made or not potentially being made, and they don't understand all the ins and outs of boxing politics. But, are you open to be working with... I mean, listen, I'll say it, Eddie Earn, Mick Hennessy, whoever it is, if the fights are right and the deals are right, you're open to working with them.
Well, Derek Chisora fought Tyson Fury, so Mick and I worked on that. Haymaker Promotions, I worked with them to make the Chisora fight. Frank Maloney, we've worked with to make fights happen. I've worked with a number of promoters around the country to make fights happen, Alex Morrison in Scotland and so forth. I've made offers, written offers, which you've seen, to Matchroom, but as you've heard them say, they only fight on Sky TV. That's not me stopping the fights from happening. That's a reason to say we don't want our guy fighting your guy. Yeah, I think that's a question you should ask the other side, because you've seen my written offers, bona fide written offers.
We're going to get around to all the promoters and do our little talk, so,
I'm sure you will, but, people say things, but it's very easy to say things and all this stuff, and a lot of people say things because they feel they're more important than what's going on in the world in the world of boxing. But the fact of the matter is, if you are making an offer to somebody, it's no just shouting and talking about it. Here it is in writing. Here is my offer. Do you want it or you don't want it? If you don't want it, fair enough. But don't say you weren't made. Don't say that I'm stopping a fight from happening because I'm making the offer. If I don't want my guy to fight someone, I'll say he's not ready for that, or I do not fancy it. But I haven't got any offers. We had an offer for Kevin Mitchell to fight Gavin Reeves from Matchroom, and also for John Murray. Kevin Mitchell didn't want the fight. John Murray, we accepted it, and the fight didn't happen. So I'll tell you, if I don't want it, I'll say I don't want it. If I want it, I'll go with it.
Moving on to 2013, obviously we're going to be expecting... I'm talking as a fan here, Frank. We're going to be expecting... I know, but I'm just, when I say we, that's what I mean. We're going to be expecting, like you've had this year, the Hay Chisora, the Ricky Burns, Kevin Mitchell. Are these fights going to happen next year? And can you give us a little indication of...
Well, they did happen this year.
No, sorry, I meant for next year. Sorry, I know, it's for next year.
But they did. But all you think, all those fights last year, Burns, we made them happen. That's not keeping my fellas apart. When we can do it, we'll put them together. There are times it won't happen. I can't force two guys to fight each other. Sometimes you'll find that the fighter doesn't want the fight. That's his choice. That's his prerogative. But, when we can make them, we're in the business of making big fights. It's a very difficult... Unfortunately, in this era of boxing that we're in, a lot of the ratings are full of guys whose names end in Y or V or Z, coming in from from Eastern Europe. That's not to say they're bad fighters, but there's some of those guys just do not capture the public's imagination. So you're bringing in somebody from, I don't know, Uzbekistan or wherever it may be, or Azerbaijan, wherever it may be. That can be a problem, even though they're good fighters. I mean, when you look in the Olympics, Kazakhstan won 3 golds, I think. That can be a problem, and you get stuck with some of those fights because you can only look at the ratings and say, well, who's available. And I think that's something we got to live with. The demise of the American fighters, when you had the razzmatazz of a Yank fighting a Brit, was always good news. That doesn't happen so often now. So next year, what are we going to do? We're going to be more creative. We're going to make. There are some big fights. I'm really hoping if I can get what I'm trying to get done in the next couple of days, is going to be a really big fight for one of my guys. That'll be on the cards, and we are trying to, move a couple of our fellas with decent names. So I think that, the first 3 months next year, we're going to be in pretty good shape. We're going to, obviously in those 3 months, you're going to have Nathan Cleverley fighting, you're going to have Ricky Burns fighting, you're going to have George Groves fighting, you're going to have Frankie Gavin fighting, you're going to have Billy Joe fighting, you're going to have all the good youngsters that we've got coming through, all on the same card. So that's not a bad mix of fighters. And I don't think that too many other promoters can boast, because I'm boasting, that we've got that quality. And they're young fighters. They're not old guys. They're not somebody else's fighters. They're fighters that we work very hard to develop.
What would you say was the highlight of the year for you this year?
I've got to say, and I'll keep banging on about it, I think Ricky Burns was the highlight of the year. I really do believe he's a quality fighter, and he doesn't get the recognition he deserves outside of the boxing fans. He's an excellent fighter. That was a highlight. I thought Derek Chisora's fight against Klitschko was a really good fight for the fans to watch. He went in there, and somebody's giving their all. You can't ask no more than that. It's guys who show up and take their few quid and go home. He actually went in there and he even won the last round. And a bit more experience, you never know. Him and David Hay was a great fight. Great atmosphere at West Ham. It was a fabulous atmosphere there. Everybody enjoyed it. Despite the poor weather that we had. I mean, it peed down and rain, I think, for 3 weeks leading up to the fight. And we still had a big gate there, and probably would have had 50,000 people if it hadn't rained so much. So that was good. There are so many highlights, excuse me, of different fights. I thought the Kevin Mitchell, Ricky Burns lead up to the fight really went well. The two guys who respected each other, and as I say, Ricky on the night, he was obviously a much better man. There's been a lot of them. There's a lot of youngsters, as I say, coming through on play with young. It's sad, like Bradley Saunders, who I really thought was going to do big things this year. He broke his hand. He's had an operation today, so he's going to be out for about 4 or 5 months. But a quality fighter. He had a good win when just before he busted his hands up. A lot of those young kids coming through, it's been good. A couple of them got beat, like poor young Ronnie Heffron. He got a loss on his record, but he'll learn from that fight. So you can't win. You push him too fast. You push him too slow. It's that's the business you're in. But Ronnie's a real loyal kid, and we'll get back behind him. I could sit here and mention so many names of all these young fighters. Liam Smith had a great win the other night. Yeah, Bradley Skeet. They both had good wins. Liam's done well. He's back in the game. His brother Stephen, unfortunately, has had a hand problem, but he's going to be back in action in the new year. So. There's a lot of things going to happen. A lot of these guys, hopefully, I believe, are going to be. If they're certainly not done it by next year, they'll do it the year after. So I'm quite excited about where we are. I'm excited that the channel now has got to a level where it is breaking even. I'm excited that the fact that everybody thought it was going to be a 3-minute wonder and it was going to fall over. And I can't believe in this world that we're in that the people, boxing wouldn't want to see it be a success. David Price has done brilliantly on there. He's not my fighter; he's Frank Maloney's fighter, but he's on there, and he's had a. I thought he had the Audley Harrison fight. I'm not a big fan of Audley's, but he done that in style. He's a guy who's going to be up there. I think the British heavyweight scene really is now interesting. Certainly, one of the Klitschko's is coming to the end of the line, so it's going to open up a bit. And I think that the Brits can be in the mix. There aren't any American heavyweights out there of note. All we got to worry about is guys that are on the continent. So I think not just for me, but for other promoters, there's some good things that are happening. You know, Mick Hennity's done a great job with Channel 5, getting boxing on Channel 5. You've got to take your hat off to him for that. You know, it's been good.
Well, unfortunately, like I said, just for the sheer amount of fighters you have, you can't mention everyone. If someone hasn't been mentioned and watching this, then obviously, but I've just picked out certain moments and certain fighters that have been relevant to the year. But Frank, listen, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. Obviously, you know, when we started doing iFILM London, we were with you guys as well as other promoters from the start, and you've given us access to get into post-fight stuff that other people haven't been getting to, and it's been successful for us as well. So, thank you for that.
Oh, great for you guys. I mean, the more we get out there, the more we talk about boxing, the better it is for the game and for everyone. You're a great supporter of boxing, and iFILM London have been fabulous for boxing. So let's hope you go from strength to strength. I've
been nominated for a award. I don't know if you know, Frank. I've been nominated for an ATG Radio Award in America. It's ATG Radio. They've Reporter of the Year, and there's 8 or 9 Americans. I'm the only Brit that's on there, and at the moment the voting ends on the 1st of January, and I'm leading at the moment, so it's still 2 weeks to go.
Well, things for so what you got to do to vote?
Well, I'll show you. I'll ask Dean. Talk to Dean Pill.
Punters should get on there. You know, we want a Brit to beat the Yanks. Get on there, and you should be the man.
Ask Dean Powell. He'll know that, because I'm going to send him the link.
We'll get on there.
Make sure a vote comes off your computer, though.
We'll do it. I haven't got a computer. I can't. I'm too old for that. I'm an old dinosaur. You know that. I'm still on an abacus and carrier pigeons and things.
All right. Frank Warren, thank you very much. Talking to iFILM from London, and listen, we'll look forward to see what Frank Warren Promotions brings in the new year.
And have a good Christmas to everybody.
You too. Thank you very much.
Love.